Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we're going to be talking about 10 players from the past Olympics that could be playing in the NBA. Shout out to my work, Hoops Hype. We dropped an article on this, so if you guys want to read the article, go check it out. But we're going to run through it right here, and let me know if you guys agree or disagree, or if I missed anybody in your opinion. Obviously, the big name that everybody's talking about is the former 16th overall pick back in 2016. Mr. Guerschon Yabusele. He's played for Real Madrid, a bunch of other clubs overseas, and he's shown he can arguably guard 1 through 5, and that he has the scoring chops to be a complementary player. Now, his buyout is $2.5 million, so I doubt he is leaving. He's too expensive for a team to buy him out, and B, for what his role will be in the NBA, which is just a bench guy. No offense, it's too much money being spent right there. Now, if he was a free agent, I think it would be a different story. Somebody would look at trying to bring him in. He's somebody to keep an eye out, though. At 28 years old, he could be somebody who comes over. Now, he is considered one of the best power forwards in Europe. And from my understanding is that in 2022, he has a contract that he signed that will keep him through the end of this season, 24 to 25. So he could be somebody to look out next free agency as a European player that teams might target. Now, the next one is Mathias Lessort. I actually last offseason sent a kind of a scouting deck to several teams, and I was saying this is a guy that if I were looking to try to get somebody who could be an impact player, because I always say you got to find like the Aaron Baines, the Daniel Tice, who else is that we could throw out there? I guess the Dupe Reiths of the world that are NBA ready bigs. And Lasort's a guy drafted by the Sixers. If you guys didn't know, he was somebody that in the beginning of his career, he actually almost came over to America, but he ended up staying in Europe. He's from Martinique, and he is a solid, just rim running, rebounding. Like, he's not an elite rebounder, but he's a solid rebounder. He finishes inside the arc, very efficient. Honestly, if he came over here, he would kind of be a similar player to. I think he's way more athletic, but maybe like a Rashawn Holmes, but more athletic. Like, I would say a shorter Mitchell Robinson without the rebounding, or like elite rebounding, but still like a fantastic player who I think people should keep an eye out. And he signed a 2-year deal, so this is the second year of that said deal. So maybe another guy that next offseason keep an eye out for. Now, Thomas Walkup is an American. He's 6'4", and he's a guy who can name the position he'll play it. He's arguably the best defender in Europe, plays for Olympiacos. He's listed as a point guard on some sites, but in college he was a kind of like a wing guard. Like, basically he's the white Draymond Green in a way, and his shot's gotten better so far in Europe. He's a guy who's like a 43% field goal shooter, 33% from three over the last few seasons. He's gotten his volumes up, but there's been other seasons where he's been high 30s, low 40s when he was on Zalgiris. So he's a guy that during this past, and he also played for the G League. And in the G League, he was like a 31% three-point shooter, but an incredible defender, It's for me though, the whole thing is he's locked up till 2027 in Europe. I just don't see him coming over. He's living the good life, and that's just hard to pass up. Of course, we got to talk about our man Bruno Caboclo. Bruno was the man who was 2 years, 2 years from being 2 years away, which meant he was 4 years away. Now, Bruno, he actually made an NBA or attempted to make an NBA comeback, I believe, in 2022, he was on the Boston Celtics, I guess, training camp, not summer league, because he was on the Utah Jazz summer league, and then he was on the Boston Celtics training camp, and then he appeared in 2 games for the G League Capitans de Ciudad de Mexico, and he's bounced around. Now he's been on Partizan. Now it said that it's interesting as he's only 28 years old and he's become a really good player overseas. He's more of a power forward, center, rebounding, shot blocking, solid basketball player, but at the end of the day, I think that the big thing with him is inconsistency at times. Like he's a solid player, but then there's sometimes where it just does not look good. So I think he's gonna just stay overseas. People already know what he is. And that's kind of the problem with this guy is so Felipe Petrusev, I loved him and he finally came over. He was someone played at Gonzaga, then he goes overseas, wins the Adriatic League, then enters the draft, gets drafted, stays overseas, goes to FS, has a smaller role, then goes ahead and goes to Red Star and has a better season. Sixers bring him over. I guess the Sixers didn't really like him, or if they did, they just ended up having to trade him for the salaries to make sense in the Clippers deal. And then the Clippers traded him to the Kings. And on the Kings needed a backup center and they just didn't care for him. So he's 24. I just think the problem with Felipe Petrusev is, yeah, obviously, look, he's a guy who can shown that he can in the EuroLeague. 53% from the field over the last few seasons, 34% from three, 8 points a night, like 4 rebounds. My whole thing with Felipe is, or Philip, why am I saying Felipe? I've been saying Felipe this whole time. Filip Petrusev. Why am I saying Felipe? I'm so sorry. But Filip Petrusev, his whole problem, I think, when you look at it is, I think he's a third, maybe a second string big man who isn't the best in space, and it's a bit more problematic. He can either be a third string big guy in the NBA, or he can be a starter MVP in certain leagues in Europe. And even when you saw like in the preseason, he was only getting like 13 minutes a night. He didn't his stats aren't insane. And yeah, that's kind of how it is. And he's only played in one G League game, so I just don't think he's gonna subject himself to that. So let's continue to the next one. It just makes I just don't see him coming back. He's already tried it, it didn't work out. So Isaac Bonga. I always liked Isaac, and his shot's been falling. He's been winning in Germany. The shot's fallen, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys don't believe me, the shot is fallen since he's left. He's actually been somewhat of a decent shooter. 43% from the three, 54 from the field this past year, 39 from three, 48% from the field, and he's been a guy 8, 4, and 1.5, 8, 5, 2 almost, like not bad stats after what he gave it 1, 2, 3, 4. He gave it 4 years in America before calling it quits. The crazy thing about Isaac is he's only 24 years old, so it's actually more realistic that Isaac comes over. And Isaac's actually like an insane athlete. Isaac's 3 days older than me. He's an insane athlete, and he's a great defender. He's actually a free agent currently right now. So out of everybody so far on this list, Isaac's actually the most likely to come here. If somebody wants a defensive maestro, basically, Isaac could be the Dante Exum. The same way that the Mavericks went out and got Dante Exum this past season, I think Isaac is the guy that could be this year's Dante Exum that somebody picks up on like a non-guaranteed deal. He makes the team. Maybe it's like a 2 year or something like that. All right, Alexa I literally know how Avramovich, right? Aramovich or Avramov. Oh my God, Avramovich. I'm terrible. I'm like Yugoslavian. My grandfather was born in Skopje, okay, raised in Belgrade. But either way, this guy is somebody that I think literally my grandfather was born in Skopje, and I'm saying Skopje the Serbian way. It's not Skopje, Skopje. Okay. Either way, he plays for Moscow CSK. He played for Partizan before that, and he's another guy that this past year he left Partizan and seemingly he just signed to Russia. He went undrafted, and for me, the thing with him is he's been a guy that he's one of the better players in Europe defensively. He's a great, and he didn't he win he won the defensive player of the tournament. He's a guy who can, depending on the level he's playing in Spain, he was a 16 point per game guy. In Italy, he put up 17. In Serbia, he's putting up like 20. And then with Partizan, he was like a 10 point more of a defensive maestro. So he's shown that he can adapt. He signed with Russia and with Moscow, so I don't see him going. He has the scoring chops and like the ability to switch roles. This is the French Mike James. Look at him. He looks like Mike James, but the French version. Isaiah Cordier. So Isaiah Cordier, I believe is how you would say this. He's an interesting one because like I like him. I think he's got skill, and I think he's somebody that if you're an NBA team, you're looking at him. He's 28 already, playing in Italy for Bologna. And he was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, but he was traded. His rights were traded to the Nets, and they like just renounced them. And for me, I think the biggest thing with him, first off, I think he signed an extension. It doesn't say when he signed an extension, but he is still with Bologna, and he had originally signed a 2-year deal, so they definitely extended his butt. But he is shown to just be a guy who can be a really good role player, but also has the chops. He's also like 6'7" or 6'5", my apology. 200 pounds, got a good frame. I like his game. He's somebody to go, but he's locked up. A lot of these guys, the problem is that like they got a good situation in Europe, so why would they leave? Carlik Jones, I do think is somebody who might want to get back into the NBA, but how enticing is like a offensive-minded 6'1" guard who's 26? It's no offense. I mean, he was in in China this past year, and he's been bounced around the Nuggets, the Mavs, the Bulls, and he's played for the Legends and then the Windy City Bulls. I think he's gonna make more money and have more success overseas as a player similar to like Frank Mason and stuff. I like him, but he's more of a feel-good story. He's somebody that maybe people have interest in, but I don't. And last but not least, the best story, I found out about him last year watching Yuki Kawamura and noticed Josh Hackinson out there. And that was during like the FIBA Basketball World Cup. But Josh Hawkinson's been playing 7 years of of Japanese basketball. He's fantastic out there, absolute dominant. Crazy, he hasn't won any big time awards out there. Not even like top player, like usually he's not even a top 10 player, just chipping away. Clearly embraced by the people of Japan. But yeah, so he's just somebody that's never going to come over. Why would he give up being his situation? Probably loves it there. But that's it. If you guys made it this far, hit that like and subscribe button, guys. It would mean the world. That was the 10 players who could potentially be coming over, or not coming over, but who could play in the NBA that were in this past Olympics. If you guys did enjoy, hit that like and subscribe button. Links in the description.